how's it going? I'm Marlene. Thanks for wandering by. So today I have for you, this is gonna be a reflection video. Basically, it's a reflection, a review of my year in Tarot and Oracle this past year, 2022. And I knew I wanted to come to you guys and share with you, the things that stood out to me, the decks and different things that I worked with throughout the year. I just didn't know right away in what format. And there's some awesome tags going around on TarotTube that kind of cover this thing where standout decks. I think Julie did at Peekaboo Rose and others. But what I wanted to do, and this is not a tag, but it's tag friendly if anybody wanted to do a VR, but it's not, like I didn't specifically make it that way. I just did this for myself. And what I've done and what I wanted to share with you is I wanted to compile like a countdown. So like now we're in the home stretch. This is the last week before we reach the new year. And I wanted to share with you like a countdown of all my number ones, basically. These are all my number ones, and we're gonna go through a few different categories. We're going to talk about my number one of each of the suits. So my number one wand, cup, sword, and pentacle. We're going to talk about my number one suit overall as a whole. We're going to talk about my number one court card, my number one major card, my number one oracle and tarot deck pairing is on the list, and my number one, and then the last two are going to be, the most fun for me to reveal, because the last two are going to be my number one oracle deck for the year and my number one tarot deck for the year. So you can, if you've been around with me for a while, you might already start guessing what those things may be ahead of time. But yeah, I wanted to kind of like single out each like individual cards and an individual deck because I didn't compile this list because these were like, it wasn't like my stats, like the cards that I got the most often or the cards that I saw the most. Maybe in some cases there is a stalker situation, but in any case, there is different reasons why I chose each of my number ones. And I'll just explain that as we go, but it's more about reflecting upon specific readings and experiences and what I learned from those specific cards and decks and suits and whatever that really stood out, or that really that really made my year, that really helped me grow and taught me things, basically. So so different, you'll see as I go, the different reasons why I picked different cards. So yeah, we're going to reflect upon my year gone by, my year in Tarot and Oracle, 2022. And so, yeah, without further ado, we'll just get into it. And I'll put the categories up for you as we go along. Okay, and away we go. All right, first up, we're gonna start with the minor cards, and we're gonna go in the order that I like to order my suits in. So the first suit is the suit of wands. And I don't I don't even know what to say to begin with. The suit of wands for me is about creativity. It's about life force. It's about like my very essence. That's how I think of the suit of wands. and I do a year ahead reading, or I did last year anyway. So last year at this time, I did my year ahead reading for 2022. And the card that I'm going to reveal to you was my card for the month of September. And it was extremely significant because the month of September was a really, really difficult month. We had just moved. My partner was in the hospital for some time. And it was just, there was so much on my plate, so much going on. It was so overwhelming. And it very, very much reflected the card that I got for the month of September. So I picked this wand for a couple of different reasons, because it was one of my cards for a month of the year, and also because of these specific decks. So this is the Wild Essence Thoth. And this is the Animal Wise Tarot. I'll show you a little bit what the Wild Essence Thoth looks like. This is a deck that was made by Lennon Smith, who is a tarot tuber here. And this deck is exactly its title. It's the Wild Essence of Thoth. It is the essence of the card with these nature scenes, or one singular item. Some of them aren't only nature. This is, technology. But like, look at that Fool card. But it's like taking a very, very boiled down, very specific place or object or piece of nature that kind of embodies the essence of that particular card meaning. And it's so clever. It's been spot on with all of my readings. I just love it so much. And then the other deck that I'm going to show you my number one wand from is the Animal Wise Tarot, which I just featured recently because I just did my deck collection series on my animal decks, and I can't speak highly enough of this deck and the guidebook, and just how these particular images in these ovals, and just what you can learn from the animal in relationship to the card meaning, the story of the animal, its natural way of being, and then these amazing keywords are just make this deck, one of my absolute favorites. So that's the Animal Wise Tarot. That's the, it's unfortunately out of print. And the Wild Essence Thoth by Lennon, you can get on Make Playing Cards. Anyway, I always will put links below. So all of that build up to show you my number one wand card. And my number one wand card is the Ten of Wands. And these are two really untraditional Ten of Wands. This is from the Wild Essence Thoth. So this is a Thoth-based deck. So the Ten of Wands is has the keyword or title oppression. And then the Ten of Wands is the Ten of Ancients in the Animal Wise Tarot, and it's a tortoise. And the key phrase here is movement through pressures. And you guys, like, I spent a lot of time looking at this barbed wire, this piece of barbed wire fence with this spider web on it, with this sunset or sunrise in the background. And I thought quite a bit about what the Ten of Wands means to me. In your Waite-Smith, it is typically somebody carrying like a bundle of wands. It's a burden. The Ten of Wands is traditionally like you're almost at the end of this journey. You're almost home. But it can mean, in like the Thoth lens, this idea of oppression. And the tortoise is such a good symbol for carrying your. I came to think of this less as burden, as more as ownership of my own, I guess my own burdens, my own stresses, my own things. It literally began to mean like my own home, carrying my own home around with me, because I moved three times in this year. And it was under considerable pressures. But not just that, like I imagine myself in this particular card, this was like my perspective, that I imagine myself like running towards the edge of this, wherever I am, and coming, running hard and coming full stop to this piece of barbed wire and not being able to have freedom. And all of this stuff about the Ten of Wands just made me, like, the big lesson, like the big takeaway for me was about that burden, that pressure, that stress, that, some things are outside of my control, things that happen in my life, like I had to move, my partner was sick, like those aren't things that like we necessarily like brought upon. Anyway, the idea is that this is mine. Like I have ownership over what I'm carrying. And even if life piles a bunch of things on me, like it's my choice how I manage it. It's my choice how I get there. It's my choice to jump the barbed wire fence or go back. And it's how I move through this, journey, this stack of crap on top of me. It's like how I move through and with all that stuff that really makes a difference for me. So the Ten of Wands is my number one wand because of that, because I learned through the struggle, and my essence of me, my life force, my passion, my pursuit through this difficulty is what got me through to the other side. And yeah, it was just beautiful life lesson that even in middle age I was astounded to recognize. So yeah, that was my number one wand, the Ten of Wands. So moving on to the cups. All right, so now we've arrived at my favorite number one cup card of the year. This is from a deck that I have featured lots and featured recently. It's the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. The Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, one of my favorite decks of all time in my collection. And this is, so I'll show you just a little bit of what this deck looks like. This deck is important to me for many reasons, but I learned a lot about the tarot. This is one of the first decks, independent decks that I got. I learned so much about the tarot from this deck. This deck also like represented this like alien landscape that I really identified with as I was like traversing things in my life and felt like an outsider. And it was an emotional deck, but a very amazing, friend and teacher. It was a different experience than I had up to the point that I had gotten it with, some more traditional looking decks. But it's definitely Waite Smith. It's definitely Waite Smith inspired. And so My number one cup card, the cups for me are very simply my emotional landscape, my emotional world. And I could have picked almost any of the cups for this year as a standout for my number one. But I had a particular moment. I'm not sure even what the reading was or what the reading was about, but I had a particular moment with this card, the Ace of Cups, here in the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. It's a very different looking Ace of Cups than like your Waite Smith, but you have your basic symbolism. You have your cup that is overflowing. And that's how I think of the Ace of Cups. I think of it as this like depth of emotion, this overflow of love and feeling. And I've often I've often related to this card myself because I'm a very I was gonna say specifically emotional person, but that's a weird thing to say. But like I'm a very emotional person. I guess that's, one of the things that I am like as a poet, because I feel like I'm tuned in a very specific way. I guess that's why I was saying specifically emotional person. Because I tune in a very specific way with a very singular depth of feeling, about something, anything, or my own feelings. So that's kind of why the Ace of Cups it feels like me in a very real way. But all that to say about Ace of Cups in general, this specific Ace of Cups from the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum really, wow, like I had a wow, like moment with it, because I had looked at this, and when I looked at this at first, I thought that this right here was like hair of a person, and that this was like a figure with their hands out, like here and here. But although some of you may have already seen it because I didn't, this is the head of a person. This whole thing is the head of a person. These are the eyes. That's the ear. So it's this person in space, in the clouds, in this landscape with this lemniscate on their forehead, kind of closing their eyes. And I don't know, are they holding the cup? We don't see their hands. It would be out of the frame. And then there's this like, this pattern, the swirl, it's like dizzying, and all of this that's falling out of it. This feels like it's so surreal and so like otherworldly. It matches the tone of the deck for sure, but it just surprised me so much that I hadn't realized that this was a person. And it just felt like this giant in the sky who was handing me my my emotion as a gift. Like it felt like something that like I maybe take for granted, or something that I may be embarrassed by sometimes, my own, I don't know, my own emotions, my own depth of feeling. This felt like something incredibly ethereal, spiritual, and like a gift. So that's why this card in particular, and the Ace of Cups in general, is my number one cup for the year 2022. Okay, and now we've arrived at the sword suit. The swords, oh, the swords. The swords are like, I feel connected to them because I'm an air sign, and the suit is the swords are the suit of air. And because the Gemini cards, all of the minor arcana cards that are in Gemini are in the sword suit. So the 8, 9, and 10 of swords are Gemini cards. So I feel very connected to the Suit of Swords as my, communication, my intellect, my reasoning, my logic, my mind. I live in my mind quite a bit as a Gemini, an air sign that I am. I have a lot of air in my birth chart. And I'm not an expert on really understanding what all of my, my birth chart means, but there are a few things that I really get that feel very, very, very true. And the sword suit being like, I don't want it to be my suit. Like, I don't want it to be the Gemini suit, but it is. And so, like, learning about the swords has been like an acceptance of parts of myself or an acceptance of things that I wish weren't true. Because the 8, 9, and 10 of swords are some of the most difficult cards in the tarot deck. This is the Tree Spirit Tarot. And I'll show you a little bit. I've featured this deck. It's no surprise that this is one that's popping up here in my number ones to show off my number one sword card. But the Tree Spirit Tarot is in my top 5 for sure. I'm not like an expert on plants and trees, but there's something very moving to me about these photographs of trees with their keyword that like resonated with me on a super deep level this year and like catapulted this deck into one of the most like special decks in my collection. I absolutely love it. I love the way that it makes me feel. I love what the trees have to teach me. I love how it makes me feel connected to the trees and the earth, but it's also a mind deck for me. I don't know if that makes sense to you, because even though it's like very grounded and earthy in the trees, for me, it's about making this connection between this picture and this keyword and this like, root meaning, sorry, pardon the pun. Oh my God, I'm such a dork. Root meaning of the tarot. So yeah, so the Tree Spirit Tarot is absolutely, can't recommend more, but it's real special. It's special for me. It's a special deck. Okay, so, and the number one sword card for me of the year, and it's specifically, this card is important all around, but it's specifically the experience that I had with this card in this deck that changed everything. So this is the 10 of hardwoods. So it's the 10 of swords. Hardwoods is the name of the sword suit in the Tree Spirit Tarot. And this is I'm not going to pronounce it right, Ceiba tree, or kapok is another name for this type of tree. And the word here is change. When I saw this card, when I got this card, I cried. Like I just cried. I had a good cry. Because of, like I said, I've mentioned, I've had some challenges this year. I've had a lot going on, and things changing and things ending and things starting anew, for me across many different areas in my life. And the 10 of Swords being this, Ceiba or kapok tree, it was amazing to me. These trees are, they are here. I see these trees. I know these trees here in my area where I live. And I grew up with memories of these types of trees. I look at this and I know exactly how soft this bark feels and how these trees peel. I know because I looked up and read a lot about this particular tree because I didn't know much about it except that like I had very vivid very specific memories of interactions with trees like this as a child, teenager, adult, even an adult. Like the root system of this tree is amazing, but I looked up that some of these types of trees have these conical like bark, you know, like conical like protrusions from the bark, but that's not, those aren't the types of kapok that I see. I see ones that look more like this, that have this like very, very soft, like almost velvety bark. And I have memories of like being in parks and in different places as a child and running my hands over these trees. And I like when I saw this, it reminded me of that, of my childhood and like my growth across time, and how things have changed and how I think of the world, that how I thought of the world then, how I think of the world now, how this particular bark comes off, you know, and changes and like kind of just rips open to new things. And that's for me a big essence, a big part of, and an essence of the Ten of Swords, that it's the end specifically of a way of thinking. It's the end of a pattern of thought. Whether that pattern of thought be a destructive one, you could argue that, because this is coming after the Nine of Swords, that nightmarish anxiety, you know, spinning out of control thoughts is what's ending here. But it could be anything. It could be any kind of ending. But I always link it to a pattern of thought, a way of thinking that was destructive. Maybe not necessarily destructive, but in part that's true for me, but also just like something it's no longer. It is gone. Like it is going. It has to go. Like it has to stop and it has to change. And maybe it's evolving in some way, but it is definitely an end, a way of thinking that has stopped or needs to, for sure. And so, yeah, so on many levels, obviously, for me, this was my number one sword card. This is the Ten of Hardwoods from the Tree Spirit Tarot, my number one sword of 2022. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Pentacles suit. So we've made it through all my number ones so far of the Wands, the Cups, the Swords, and now we're on Pentacles. And I have, I could have picked a couple different pentacles as my number one pentacle. But to just talk about the pentacles and how I read them in general, I don't typically read the pentacles as something financial or specifically having to do with money, unless that really just kind of comes through in a reading. But for the most part, when I think of the pentacles, I think of them as the pentacles, the discs. I think of the suit as the suit of my reality, like the suit of my earthly, like not just possessions or, but just like everything on earth that is around me. So I think of it as a lot in terms of like nature, my home, my resources, time, like I don't know, just like things of earth, like a very much elemental association with this particular suit. I think of it as, yeah, often very related to my home, my resources, just like my real world things. Whereas maybe the stuff in the other suits had more to do with, or the things in other suits, the cards in other suits have more to do with things like on a different, like maybe spiritual plane or somewhere else. Like this is very much rooted in my five senses. You know, that's how I think of the pentacles. And I have here the Way Home Tarot. Before I reveal which pentacle it is, this is the Way Home Tarot. And this is the Druid Craft Tarot. And the Way Home Tarot, I'm happy to feature it as in one of my number ones throughout this year, because it is absolutely one of my favorite decks. It's an indie deck. It's very minimalistic. It does zero in. It does really cool things with the court cards. It kind of zeroes in on like a particular image. It does really cool things with the minors. It's pippish, you could say, definitely. And it's just made me step outside of, oops, that's upside down. It did make me step outside of like traditional meanings and wander, but like the name of the tarot, the title, The Way Home, was spectacular for me, because I've been on a journey, both literally and figuratively, to find my home, and place. And you know, at middle age, it's kind of weird to be like trying to figure out who you are and where you belong. But yeah, maybe some of you are experiencing that as well. So that's the Way Home Tarot. And sorry for my ramble, but like this is just what's happening. My this other deck is the Druid Craft, which is another one of my favorite decks ever. This is a copy that was trimmed and edged by my buddy and friend, same thing. My friend Don Michelle, who's, you know, like the most amazing one at this type of thing, among other things. But yeah, the Druid Craft. So that's funny to bring up Dawn Michelle. I mean, obviously because she, you know, trimmed and edged this, but I also have a copy of this deck with the borders, and I did Lisa Pepez, has a Tarot with Training Wheels series here on YouTube, all for free, that I followed as well. And I used my other copy of the Druid Craft to write her keywords. And it was amazing tutorial content that she put out there. And I mean, you know, the Druid Craft is special to me in many different ways, but it's also like it has my buddies. So like this is Dawn Michelle, and then the other one is, you know, like kind of is representative of Lisa in a way for me. And those two folks have, you know, been significant people in my life this year, 2022. So, yeah, anyway, so this is the Druid Craft Tarot, and it is a deck that many of you may have seen. It's an oldie and a goodie. It is incredibly earthy, so it's a great deck to showcase a pentacle from. But yeah, I absolutely love this deck. It's tried and true. It's beautiful, and it's great on so many different levels. So the Druid Craft. So let's get to the reveal. While I've been babbling, I like to keep you in suspense. So this is my number one pentacle of the year, and it is the Four of Pentacles. And you're going to see how different these Four of Pentacles are represented. Here is the one in the Way Home Tarot, and here's the Four of Pentacles in the Druid Craft. I love both these depictions for very different reasons, but they also kind of just embody the way that I read the Four of Pentacles, which is not just about hoarding, not just about because some people can kind of think of it that way. For me, the Four of Pentacles is about holding on and security and saving and keeping and treasuring something, but also like the way that you interact in your own reality with the way that you hold on to things and what makes you feel safe and secure. And this is brilliant. This brilliantly shows this, because this frog on these lily pads, it blows my mind, because if this frog moves in any way, they may lose their footing, and they're on 4 different lily pads. So they have to hold on extremely tightly to stay secure, to stay safe. They have to gather those lily pads together, and they have to figure out where they're going to go from here. But right now, they are holding on. They're holding on with all their might to stay afloat, to stay secure, to stay safe. Like, that's amazing in this particular image here for me. And sometimes I feel like that's, what, like, you can compare that with how you behave in your own reality. Like, is that a good thing that you're holding on that tightly? I mean, it's keeping you safe. I say in the general sense, like it's keeping you safe, but is it the right move? Is it what you should be doing now? It is a structure. It is a safe place, but I don't know. It's not over yet. Like at some point you are going to have to move from those lily pads. You have to. And I really, really love this particular depiction in the Druid craft of the Four of Pentacles because it's, this treasure chest that we're putting our treasure into. Like we are holding something very safe, very secure. And yes, this is like literal. I mean, who knows what's in there actually? I don't know if it's money. It could be flour, it could be seeds, it could be, I don't know, it could be wooden things that this person has carved. Like there could be anything inside there. We immediately assume it's money, but it could be anything. And that's what I think about the Four of Pentacles. Like it could be anything in our own world that we are holding on to, maybe too tightly to, maybe not. Maybe it's just an awareness of the thing that makes us feel the safest. But that's, certainly, in my own world, in my own readings, in my own thoughts, like that's why the Four of Pentacles stood out to me, so much when I saw this card in the Way Home Tarot. Like it made me branch out my thinking, but, it was significant to me for various different reasons. And I just think it's like really cool, really, really cool. So that is the Four of Pentacles, my number one pentacle for the year 2022. All right, now we've arrived at my number one suit, minor suit, overall for the year 2022. I love all the suits. I don't usually have play or pick favorites, but if I think back about the suit that was most significant to me, just kind of across the board in its story. So the way that I think of the Ace through 10 in each of the minor suits is that I love to see the progression and the story of that suit. And the story of this suit is the one that spoke to me the most. Now, this deck out here is the Spacious Tarot, and I'll just talk about it briefly and show you overall what it looks like. The Spacious Tarot is an amazing deck that allowed me exactly what it said it was going to, space. It allowed me space to get into the cards and write my story. And that is precisely what I did with this particular deck. It taught me a lot. It taught me how to get inside the tarot. It taught me how to path work into the tarot and to write my own story with the cards, specifically with this suit. And I did that, and this year I made a video, and I'll link it in the cards. Is that where? I'll link it in the cards for you. It was one of the very first videos I made, months and months ago, on the suit of cups in the Spacious Tarot. So I'll just turn these over and reveal to you the suit of cups. Now I couldn't get this all beautifully on frame. So the suit of cups, the thing about it is these are inanimate objects, and the scenes in the Spacious Tarot are really about, it's not about I don't know. I don't think it was meant to be like a personification of these cups, but that's what it became to me. It became a straight up personified story of these cups. This one singular cup, actually, because I realized, and I won't go into too much detail, because I'll just send you to, watch that video if you want to hear the story of the brave little cup that I saw here, was revealed here, and that I followed along her. She was, female to me, along her journey through the suit of cups. This emotional ride that she took was significant to me. Like, that was an important video that I made. It was an important discovery for me on how I work with the tarot and how I can put myself in it and write stories about it and see, the personification of a cup, like, and then relate it to my life. Like, it was important and it was cool. And yeah, so the number one suit for this year, 2022, is the cup suit. And the Spacious Tarot does an amazing job of personifying that and revealing that and being that for me. Okay, now we are at my number one court card of the year. And this is fun. I love this video. It's making me so happy to make this. Like, it's just exciting. My number one court card, well, court cards in general, I've loved exploring this year. And I started a series on my channel exploring the court cards in their relationship to the I Ching, which has been like so far like amazing. I've only done a couple of them and I plan to do more in 2023. But I'll tell you more about my 2023 plans in my next video. But this is my reflection video. So we're looking back, not forward yet. But I started this series and I've been learning so much about the court cards. Court cards, very typically a difficult set of cards for people that are learning tarot to understand, because there's so many different ways to understand them. Now, I've been learning court cards as personality types, as energies, as pieces of their elemental associations, the I Ching, etc., and parts of myself and my own psyche. The court cards, I've never really latched on to any. Well, I've latched on to some significators, like the Page of Cups would be my Myers-Briggs personality type, but court cards that like I feel like I relate to, yes and no, kind of all of them a lot of the time, at different times. But the court card that I always aspire to be, well, oops, before I do that, and I might have already given myself away to some of you that know me. Let me talk about this deck real quick. This is the Marigold Tarot. This became one of my absolute favorites. I call every deck my favorite, don't I? No, but it became a very important deck to me. I used it in October, obviously, around Halloween. These skeletons, the minimal minors, very pippish, very different, very outside of the box. Not at all what I was expecting. And this, the black and white and gold, like, it's a phenomenal deck. And I really got close with it. It felt like a buddy. Like, oh my God, there it is. My friendly neighborhood chariot on the bike. This is one of the cards that made me really realize like what a significant friend these archetypes can be. And in the most like lovely, everyday, neighborly way. And how funny for it to be revealed through these skeletons, which for me was a new kind of thing, because I never been really drawn to like skeleton imagery and things like that, you know, before. And okay, I love it. So that's the Marigold Tarot. And the number one court card of the year is the Queen of Wands. And like I was saying, the Queen of Wands is a personality or energy or element or aspect of self that I aspire to be. I want to be brave and bold and creative and independent and fierce in the way that the Queen of Wands is. And every time I see her, often she seems unapproachable to me. I mean, she's supposed to be really charming as well, but like a lot of the depictions of the Queen of Wands in lots of different decks is really like fierce and fiery and like, you know, like such an amazing force that sometimes it seems a little like scary to approach. But not this Queen of Wands in the Marigold Tarot. And that's the experience that I had with all of these cards in the Marigold Tarot, that it was the skeletons are my friends, and they are very approachable, so much to learn from, so much to lean on. Like this Queen of Wands, especially with her, I wish there was a cat in here, but it's okay that it's not. I do love the traditional Waite Smith like symbolism, the sunflower, the cat, and yeah, but I love the sunflower in here especially. And it's like this, with this card, I see that it's attainable, that this type of energy, that this type of personality, that this way of being is not impossible, but attainable. So yeah, so that is the Queen of Wands, my number one court card for 2022. Now we're on to my number one major card from the year. I'm not gonna spend too much time like making a mystery or it being a big reveal, but I will tell you that there's a bunch of different cards that could have made this list, that could have made this number one spot, for so many different reasons. But, you know, because of the amount of times I saw it, because of what I learned about it, also my card of the year is based on like my birthday and the year. But my card of the year is not my number one card, but it's out here because it relates to my number one major. And anyway, let me just okay. So my number one major of the year, for so many different reasons, is the Lovers. And this is the Lovers from the Thoth Tarot. This is the Ellis deck back here, and I'll show you more about it, or talk more about it in a second. The Lovers is my number one major card, because it's the Gemini card, and it might be, I didn't count my stats, but it might be the major that I pulled the most throughout this year, maybe. But even so, even if it doesn't hold that like stat, it was significant to me every single time it came about. I learned so much about this card, the symbolism, the different children, the red lion and the white eagle and the Orphic egg, and this like column of swords in the background, and that this is the Hermit, and just like all of this stuff, like all those symbols and what they ended up meaning. But it boiled down to this idea that the Lovers card is about, for me, it took on the meaning of being about this like understanding of the various aspects of my own self, my relationship with myself, and maybe in some cases my choices in life and my commitment to other people and my, relationships with other people in my life. But mostly this came to signify my relationship with myself, the way that I see myself and my identity and my various aspects of my own identity. And it felt like, because Temperance or art is my card of the year, that this should have been my goal. That my goal for this year should have been to try to, because this is the outcome of this card and the Thoth, okay? That these two individuals merge, are getting married here, this holy wedding, and then they're still separate, and then here they've merged into this being, and things have switched, right? So now the eagle is red and the lion is white, and there's just like a ton of stuff about alchemy and whatever, but like in the simplest way, for me to wrap my head around and explain it to you, is that like I felt like what I should be doing is like integrating, mixing these aspects of myself. And the Lover's card kept coming up and kept trying to teach me this lesson. I felt like it was connected. These two things were connected, until I really realized that what it was about is not necessarily like integrating these parts of myself, but maybe accepting, before I could integrate, accepting these parts of myself. And that's still like a work in progress. Like the Lover's card keeps popping up all the time. And the Temperance card or art card, I see it often as well. And so I pulled from the Thoth because this is the most, significant way to represent these things. I love Lover's cards in all decks, really. Like the Lover's card, I always look for it. It's the Gemini card. It's the one that I look to see. I like, I do think of it on this level as like part of my, journey with myself and integrating my different parts of myself. But it also does have to do a lot with my, my romantic relationship, my interpersonal relationships and things like that. And I do love all of the depictions of the lovers as like romantic lovers as well. Yeah, for sure. But I brought out to show you the Ellis deck, and I'll show you this one really quickly, because this is the only deck that I have that that shows the Lovers and Temperance or art in the same way as I see in the Thoth. And this deck, I love this deck. It's like a fairy deck to me. I love this world. I love the colors. There's so much. It's very busy. There's a lot to, get into in this deck. It's really one of the coolest decks that I have. I really like this deck a lot. I haven't used it that much. But when I have used it, I think in the spring, it's just so colorful and so neat. But I specifically really enjoy it when I realized that this is one of the only decks that I have that joins the Lovers and Temperance or art in a very similar way as you see in the Thoth, that you have these two creatures in this like marriage, and you see how they each are holding what they're holding. Oh, I can't really even see that from here, but it's a heart, and then they merge into one being. They merge in the art or Temperance card, and I just love that all around. But the Lovers, the Lovers 100% is the card, my major card of the year 2022, the most significant major card, like I said, on so many different levels. But less about my relationship, and more about me. Just really more about me. So the Lovers card, my number one major from the year 2022. All right, and now we are down to the last three number ones. And this is my number one Oracle and Tarot deck pairing. And you may recognize the setup a la lovely Dawn Michelle, who typically puts the Oracle in the center and the Tarot on either side of it for her readings and as a way of showing a pairing. And this is, yes, very much Dawn Michelle approved. I loved the way that these two decks worked together aesthetically, energetically, just all around, like beautiful, beautiful experience. Both of these decks are significant to me outside of their use together, alone and together. But this is the Visionary I Ching cards, which you may have seen if you've hung around here a bit, as one of my favorite oracle decks. And this is the Hardy Tarot. And together, this is a gorgeous deck pairing. The colors align, the energy aligns, everything about the way that these cards move is beautiful. I absolutely love. I'm just gonna go through and show you how they look together. Show you some pairings so you can see. I could not have come up with a better pairing. And I don't know when I realized that this would go together. Sometime in the summer, I think. The Hardy Tarot also has a lover's card that I really, really love. Look at that. So we have the Eight of Swords. Oops, let's turn this one around. The Page of Cups and liaison. Liaison. Sky above, wind below. Gorgeous. I'm getting chills because I know, like, it just makes sense. They just make sense together. Look at that. So beautiful. So beautiful. Let me just show you a couple more so you can look at how gorgeous this is together. Wow, wow. Stunning. I love that Temperance card too. Okay, last one. This is mostly just like a look at how beautiful this is kind of story for me. Gorgeous, right? Look at this. Nourishment in between the Nine of Discs and the Seven of Discs. Yeah, look at how you have all these little pieces of stone, rock, something, and all these discs, and the sprouting, the little sprouting leaves here through the steps, and yeah, amazing, amazing. This is a story about growth and development and rising through, coming through. Anyway, I love it so much. So yeah, so my perfect pairing, Dawn Michelle approved, is the Visionary I Ching cards and the Hardy Tarot. My perfect pair for 2022. All right, and here we are. I don't have any setup or other way to reveal than just right here on the camera. This is my #1 Oracle deck of 2022, and it is the Kuan Yin Oracle, the Pocket Edition by Alana Fairchild. This is not a deck that I pair with the tarot. This is a deck that I use in a devotional practice with Kuan Yin. I've talked about this deck so many times, but this is the deck that made me realize that I could work with personified deity, how I wanted to, and discover my purpose with it. I have used this deck like at the end of a tarot reading sometimes, but for the most part, I use it by itself as part of prayer, devotion, meditation, communing with, speaking to, and receiving messages from the divine feminine that I see in Kuan Yin. And I've learned about her, read about her, studied, and this deck was like my gateway into that practice. It's beautiful, and the messages on the back never cease to amaze, and also just be completely spot on for what is happening in my life and spiritual, spiritually resonates. It's been a very significant practice throughout this year that I will continue. And yeah, I absolutely love what I've learned in working with Kuan Yin and working with this pocket oracle. I need to get, it's on my wish list, I think, but I need to get the full-size version of this so that I can do a little bit more, with it in terms of what's in the guidebook. But this one has really been just absolutely, life-changing, transformative. The Mother of Mercy, all the different names that Kuan Yin goes by. It's amazing. And very, very, very important in the way that I see my own spiritual path. So that is my number one oracle deck, the Kuan Yin Oracle, the Pocket Edition, my number one oracle for 2022. Okay, that's it. We have come to the countdown, the end of this countdown, my last number one, the number one tarot deck for me for the year 2022. And it's not going to be a big surprise to most of you that have been with me. It's not going to surprise you. It's not like this giant, secret or grand reveal that the number one most significant tarot deck, or most important, or most, I don't know, the deck that made it to my number one spot, and it might not always live in this number one spot, but it was my number one deck of 2022, and that's just because I worked with it every single damn day this year, and I have just a few more days left with it to work with it in this particular fashion. And that is the deck is the Thoth Tarot. Specifically this deck, my greenie, it wasn't the one that I had from the start of January till now, but it's the one that I've used most frequently. Let me just show you, because this is, I'm like, it's a bittersweet thing that this practice of mine is ending. This is the, just a regular old calendar that I got from like Walgreens or something. And I'll show you, I really stuck to this. I use the Thoth every single day this year. And I did various things. I know I didn't keep up with, the same method each time, where I wrote the name of the card, the title of the card, and like this should be something in Taurus for the Six of Discs. Oh, I think it's Saturn or Jupiter in Taurus. But anyway, like there's February. I'm just gonna flip through this real fast. I did I don't want to get into here too much, but I did keep notes for every single day. And at the beginning of the year, it was way more involved than as I went along. But I definitely, I did some other things like the new moon and the full moon here. I don't know where this is cutting off, where you can see, but yeah, I think you can only see up to here. But so that's March. And here in April, oh, this is when I started doing the Thoth group study readings. Yeah, Thoth study group reading all through May. That's when I really did all that quite a bit with the girls in my, here's June. Like, oh, and here's was doing I Ching with it too here in June. I forgot about that. I must have been using the Visionary I Ching. So here's July. I know you can't see this whole thing. Yeah, Thoth group study, group readings that I did. August. I don't know if this is interesting to you as it is to me. I started using the Wild Essence Thoth in September. So that's September. I haven't done stats. Like, I haven't counted up how many, like, that's not how I did this. Like, I didn't count up how many of each, what was my number one card or whatever. I was using Tabula Mundi, I guess, here as well. So that's October. Here's November. And now we're in December. So yeah, the Thoth, I'm gonna miss, it's not like I can't ever work with the Thoth again. But this year of Thoth, like this day by day, daily drawing, sometimes I did some readings, but for the most part, it's been one card at a time of the Thoth. It's been like such an amazing learning experience for me, learning this deck, but learning about myself. I'm gonna miss interacting with it in this very specific way, because I can never have like my first time again. That sounds so silly, but I can never have my first time with it again. I will definitely be using the Thoth in 2023. I have plans for how I want to use the Thoth next year, and I will share that with you in an upcoming video, hopefully that I can get out soon, of my plans and goals for 2023. I really love the Thoth Tarot. I've really learned from it. It's about this artwork and the symbolism. It's not necessarily at all about Crowley. That's a kind of controversial, he's a controversial figure. But regardless of all of that, like I, separate that from my working with this deck. I can. And so I do. And I have very much fallen in love with the Thoth Tarot. It has become a major part of my practice. I did discover that I prefer this artwork over the Waite-Smith, and it's my number one tarot deck of 2022. Yeah, absolutely. My number one tarot deck of 2022. And yeah, I'll just kind of end it there, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this. This was longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was just gonna like pop through this stuff. And I hope that you enjoyed that. I thought it would be just really fun to kind of visit my year in this way, to take you through very singular, specific number ones. And we have our countdown coming up to 2023 this week. And thank you so much for sticking around with me. I hope you have a happy new year and a beautiful, wonderful day. Bye.